It's no secret that China has emerged as a major player in spaceflight. Now, China wants to build a mega spaceship that's nearly a mile long. The project may sound like science fiction. It's clear that China is taking its newfound prominence in space very seriously. So what does NASA say about this massive spacecraft? It might be big spacecraft and big problems. Today, we'll discuss all the details about this craft. The China National Space Agency, CNSA, has achieved some historic firsts over the last 20 years, sending astronauts into space, deploying 3 space stations as part of the Tiangong program, developing heavy launch vehicles such as the Long March 5, and sending robotic explorers to the far side of the Moon and Mars are all a part of this. Looking ahead to the next decade and beyond, China intends to take even more daring steps in developing its space program. Among the many proposals being considered by the country's leaders for its latest 5-year plan is the development of an ultra-large spacecraft spanning kilometers. It is researching on how to manufacture the ultra-large spacecraft, which is supposed to be up to 0.6 miles, 1 kilometer in length. Having this spacecraft in low Earth orbit, LEO, would be a game changer for China, allowing it to conduct long-duration missions and use space resources. The study is said to be part of a much larger appeal for research proposals from the official National Natural Science Foundation of China, a funding organization overseen by China's Ministry of Science and Technology. Massive spaceships were described as major strategic aerospace equipment for the future utilization of specific space resources, investigation of the universe's mysteries, and even long-term living in orbit in a research blueprint posted on the official foundation's website. According to a Living Science report, the foundation wants scientists to research new lightweight design methods that could reduce the amount of construction material that would have to be lifted into orbit. New techniques for safely assembling these massive structures in space are also included. This ambitious request was one of 8 made by the National Natural Science Foundation of China during a meeting earlier this month in Beijing. Each of these projects has been awarded $2.3 million, the equivalent of $15 million, in research and development funding. One of the project's primary goals, according to reports, will be to identify ways to reduce the spacecraft's mass while still guaranteeing they are structurally strong enough to go into orbit. The feasibility study, if funded, would reportedly last 5 years. The project may sound like science fiction, but NASA's chief technologist Mason Peck pointed out that it isn't entirely out of the realm of possibility. The challenge is also a question of engineering rather than fundamental science. In other news, the FAA has suspended Virgin Galactic following billionaire Richard Branson's risky mission. According to the Chinese Foundation's project outline, which was cited by the South China Daily Mail, SCDM, the spacecraft pieces will be produced on Earth and then launched individually to orbit to be joined in space. The same outline specifies that this spacecraft will be a major strategic aerospace equipment for the future use of space resources, exploration of the mysteries of the universe, and staying in long term. Peck, who is currently a professor of aerospace engineering at Cornell University, told Live Science that the problem would be described as one of scale rather than insurmountable impediments. According to Peck, the most difficult task would be the price task due to the massive cost of launching these objects and materials into space. This suggestion is being met with a tremendous degree of skepticism. To begin with, deploying all of the essential pieces into space would necessitate an absurd number of launches. In comparison, the International Space Station, ISS, is the largest man-made structure ever erected in space. Nonetheless, it required dozens of launches and several years to be put together, at a significant cost to all its participants. NASA's Destiny and Unity models, the Soviet-Russian Zarya and Zvezda modules, as well as the Integrated Truss Structure (ITS) and solar arrays were the first to be installed. It took 42 assembly flights to transport these pieces, 36 of which were done with the Space Shuttle and the rest of the Russian Proton or Soyuz U launches. Since the beginning of assembly in 1998, no fewer than 232 extravehicular activities (EVAs) have been necessary to assemble and maintain them. According to Peck, the ISS, which is around 110 meters wide at its widest point according to NASA, costs over $100 billion to build. The station also demands $4 billion in annual operations and maintenance, a responsibility that is currently shared by 15 member nations and their various space programs. It was observed that building anything 10 times larger would tax even the most generous national space budget. Despite this, the ISS is 109 meters, 356 feet from end to end, whereas the proposed Chinese station calls for a structure 20 times that size. Based on the most conservative projections, a spaceship spanning kilometers would cost upwards of $3 trillion, or close to $20 trillion. However, the plan, which looks to be part of China's 14th five-year plan, 2021 through 2025, appears to be intended solely at examining the in-orbit assembly of an extra-large spacecraft. A lot is presently dependent on the type of structure the Chinese intend to create. The ISS is allegedly loaded with equipment and is intended to accommodate humans. This will result in a considerable rise in its bulk. China also intends to build its own Mars rover similar to Ingenuity. Peck pointed out that if they're talking about anything that's just long and not particularly heavy, it's a different issue. According to reports, building techniques could assist cut the overall cost of launching a massive spaceship into orbit. According to Peck, the typical technique would be to create components on Earth and then simply assemble them in orbit like Legos. 3D printing technology has the potential to transform compact raw materials into structural components with substantially bigger proportions in space. An even more appealing option, according to reports, would be to acquire the raw minerals directly from the Moon, which already has minimal gravity in comparison to Earth. According to Peck, this would imply that launching objects from the surface into space would be easy. Do we dare to hope that the terms ultra-large spacecraft in the context refer to a space elevator? Given the resurgence of interest in space elevators in recent years, it's hardly the most far-fetched idea. Because of the advancement of carbon nanotubes, graphene, diamond nanofilament, and other supermaterials, space agencies and architecture firms around the world have revived their interest in the notion. China's 6th annual National Space Day revealed that the country is interested in developing Starship-like spacecraft and spaceplanes. More recently, China revealed plans to send crewed flights to Mars by 2033 as part of a long-term plan to establish a permanent base there, effectively surpassing NASA's ambition to send astronauts there in the coming decade. Whatever the long-term purpose of this kilometer-spanning spacecraft is, it is evident that China is taking its newfound prominence in space extremely seriously. It is also evident that they expect to build on that in the future years, eventually supplanting NASA and Roscosmos as the world's top space power. China has also expressed interest in constructing massive solar power arrays in orbit and beaming the power back to Earth via microwave beams. China may also want to build a space telescope of that size at a great height. A space telescope of that scale could potentially see features on the surface of planets and other solar systems. But these things are possible or not, we don't know. Let's see what happens in the future. What do you think about the spaceship? Let us know in the comments below.